Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions, 4 p.m. BST on a Tuesday. Today joined by Lexi, Britt and Mark. For those in the UK and other people affected, we're now fully back in lockdown again, but we've been here before. We know what to do, so let's keep it moving. Lexi, would you like to give an introduction, please?
Sure. So my name's Lexi Mills. I run a small agency called Shift6 Global. We do a mixture of PR and SEO combined together. Increasingly, we do a little bit more on integrating social media as well. So worked with Mark for many years, creating content and then doing the promotion side of that. I also run a foundation called the Future of Search Foundation, which aims essentially at its core to make the internet a better place. So plug content gaps, think about things like regulation, ethics, morals, and how we make an internet that we'll be proud of in the future.
Sounds good to me. Up next is Britt. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Danny. I'm Britt Kons. I'm a digital marketing consultant that specializes in content strategy and digital PR. I also worked with Mark at Distilled quite a while back now, promoting the content that the wonderful creative team created. And I co-host a podcast called the We Earn Media Show, and it's all about interviewing journalists about how they like to be pitched and what kind of stories they're looking for. So I wanted to just plug that.
Excellent. No worries. We can plug that again at the end of the show. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey. Yeah, as Britt mentioned, well, as Lexi did as well, all three of us used to work together in an SEO agency called Distilled, where we kind of all worked in the content and digital PR side of things. Lexi and I actually started on the first day 10 years ago, same first day, and we kind of had to figure out it was when stuff was changing online, content marketing was becoming a thing, the rules of SEO were changing, and so we had to figure out, how do you create content, how do you get links, how do you get PR coverage? And then Brett was doing the same thing over in the Seattle office. Lexi and I were based in London. These days, we're all independent contractors. These days, I run a site called Content Hubble, where I train people how to come up with creative content ideas that will get lots of attention.
Sounds good. And for people that don't know, in the UK, Distilled was like one of the most respected agencies over here. They had a big tie-in with SEO mods as well, didn't they? So very highly respected. Obviously, the SEO game has changed over the years. Today, we're going to be talking about earned media, how that can impact on your Amazon business or your Shopify store related to your Amazon business. So, Britt, let's kick off with you. Let's give a quick overview what the term earned media is and how you can utilize it the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, earned media is just how can you get attention from the press, whether that's via expert commentary that you can provide thoughtful opinions around. Also, whether that's creating content that journalists and reporters might want to reference in their own work, whether that's surveys, whether that's data pieces or data analytics reports or data analysis reports. Sorry about that. It's a bit early here, so I'm still waking up.
No worries.
And anything that you can do to get attention in the media is what I would refer to as earned media.
Yep. Cool. Mark, what is your take on the landscape with earned media? I mean, it's in the bio. We didn't add Lexi and Britt in because they were quite late joining to the show today, as added as guests. But it's quite impressive. I mean, between the three of you, let me just pull up I just want to put it up now. It says, Mark, he specialises in data-driven visual and interactive content. The content Mark has been responsible for has gained over 38,000 links, 2.8 million social shares and 44 million visits. I mean, that's quite impressive. And I know that you kind of run a team on that. So give it a bit of a breakdown of how you would get underway. Let me give you a scenario, right?
Yeah.
This hat here, Beast Gear, it says it here. This is a friend's sportswear brand,
Nice.
which is now owned by Frasio. Mm-hmm. And effectively, he started up and he's gone down the route to not just be a brand on Amazon, but to be off Amazon. He's done well with Shopify. They've got a great store, and they managed to pick up a lot of influencers like UFC guys, some UK boxers like middleweights and amateur fighters. There's some weightlifters, all sorts of people out there who are engaged with the brand, he's done a very, very good job of distinguishing his brand on Amazon. What would you have done if you've got a hold of Beast Gear and it's skipping rope wraps and everything else? How would you put that into the market in terms of earned media?
Yeah, I guess the first thing to think about is what is it that your audience is really interested in? Like, so they're interested in the gear, but the gear might not be the thing that they're talking about all the time, right? It's usually what they use it for. What's that allowing them to do? So it'll be about training, it'll be about fitness, it'll be about health. They'll also probably be interested in nutrition and protein and all this stuff. So you'd want to figure out who it is that you're going after and what the core topic is they're interested in. And then I quite often delve into tools to find out what are people sharing in here. So 2 tools I go to straight away. It's like,
so effectively what you're doing is contextual. You're not just focusing on the product itself. It's in and around the lifestyle, the clothing, the attitude and everything else that comes with it.
Yeah. So like if you know there's a site that your audience is likely to be reading or people they're likely to be following, what are those people writing about? And that's and where can you fit in so that it's relevant to you and your product, but also relevant to their interests? And it's finding that sweet spot. There is a tendency for people to always want to talk about their product, but it might not always be the best sales pitch in terms of earned media. And so like go on BuzzSumo and you could put in health, fitness, maybe you put in UFC if that's what you're interested in, or training, fitness training. And BuzzSumo will show you all the most socially shared posts from the last year on that topic. So you can dig through that. I spend quite a while doing that, maybe an hour or so, or longer, half a day even. And I begin to get a feel for what's popular and what does resonate. And then similarly, you could put Spark Toro in, and which is another tool where you just put health and fitness, or you'll have to think a few times about what's the top level word I need to put in here. And then, but say you put fitness in, it'll show you the sites that people that are interested in that engage with the most, the social profiles they engage with the most, the YouTube channels. Go and visit them and you begin to get a sense of what is it these people like to talk about. That's the conversation you want to be in.
Yeah, so effectively it's almost like when you're doing research for Facebook ads or for Google ads as well, the contextual side of things. Where are the relationship between the product itself and the surroundings of that? Lexi, give me some ideas of some stuff that people would put into play based on what we've been discussing with Mark.
So, firstly, there are 2 objectives here, and they can sometimes be the same one. Links for SEO value, or PR for brand value, which can or cannot have links. And different press will give links. So that does change your strategy. But when you're an Amazon seller and you've got another store, you've got your own site, your own brand, one of the key things to start to consider are P0 answers, smart answers. And that often guides our strategy a little bit more. So as Mark was saying, what are these people's interests? What do they care about? Well, what are the questions they're asking? And do you have content strong enough on your site to rank for that? And you might be building out that content and then doing another project alongside it to get even more links to it, because that is brand recognition. There's no greater brand trust than being the answer for a question on Google. Because when we think about earned media, a lot of people will think straight away, oh, well, PR placements, radio, newspapers, but it's not really all that. Google is its own third-party endorser, and the structure of the way Google works is important. So thinking about how that trajectory of search landscape is going to build up, what content can go in there, I always find is a really good starting point, and then go playful. Like if I was a little bit drunk and I had some coloring in pens and was brainstorming about this, what silly ideas would I come up with? Would it be, okay, everyone wants to know how they're made. Well, let's see if we can get a grandmother, a 4-year-old, and maybe a rocket engineer, all to make a hat or a skipping rope or decorate one at the same time. And you film it and you do it in fast loop. That may not be groundbreaking press, but it might get you a few little bits. And it's fun and it's shareable and it'll work across other channels. And then you might say, hang on, how are they made? Oh my goodness, you make them there? Isn't that quite unusual? And now suddenly you've got a business story. So a lot of the content we do, the first thing I like to ask is there an actual story there that someone doesn't know about? We had a client a few years ago who had just failed to mention that they were manufacturing loads of things in Britain. And at this point, the media were talking about reshoring, bringing manufacturing home. So that was a great big story for them. And that was really what underpinned the SEO side of the earned media for that new category of products. And then, of course, we looked at color trends and did colored versions, and you give a few away for people to make unique versions of whatever the product was. So the key thing is starting with what does the audience want. And I don't feel great about it, but what is playful? The internet is supposed to be a fun place, and playful works well in press. And you add playful with a little bit of intelligence or research behind it, then you've suddenly started to put a lot of meat on the bones of a story. I think we can all be a bit guilty of just looking at something from one side and not asking ourselves, hang on, have we got this story right in every possible angle? Is there data? Is there a human element? Is there a playful element? Is there a serious element? And does it serve a purpose? So you're kind of trying to have it all in one go, like a Long Island iced tea, everything in one place.
You actually gave me a bit of an idea during that, Lexi, actually. Danny, I mean, I've seen on your Facebook that you're up every morning at a certain time doing skipping, right? That's something you do your boxing training, and you share the video and you share the videos with your Amazon sellers. Like, something that would be super easy for these guys to test out is, could they get a little thing for, it's New Year, we're stuck in lockdown, everyone's doing Zoom calls. They could give out a bunch of these skipping ropes to people and say, like, accountability, everyone turn up at 9 a.m. or whenever it is, 6 a.m., we're going to do this 5-minute skipping and get on with our day. Like, just as a rough idea of something you could test, trying to tap into things that are going on at the moment, the trends.
So let's develop on that idea. So you're an Amazon seller, you got a brand, and often there's points where we do giveaways to help with ranking and stuff like that. But another way of going down that route is not just going out to influencers to give away the items to the influencers so they're able to publish on Instagram and places like that, but you're actually galvanizing your audience and saying, here's the skipping rope, send out 50 of those, record a video of yourself, and then share it to the social media platforms that you're using, whether that's on TikTok or Instagram, as an example.
Yeah, but I mean, I would maybe go for the full live Zoom thing, because it's kind of this would only really work. I'm trying to tap into the fact that it's New Year, we're in lockdown again, people have resolutions, it works for their product. It's a test, it might not work, but it gives you a bit more of a story that these people, like, that we've gathered these accountability partners, and or you could set it up as a blogger challenge, and they get to tag people, like, join in the challenge and tag other people to join in it, and you all do it live.
But then, you can capture that. You can capture all that information, you record it, you get everyone engaged, and then that becomes a news story that you would share to the outlets as well, is what you're saying, to get earned media links.
Potentially, but this is where I, as the creative person, have to go to Lexi and Brett and go, am I being an idiot? Do you think there's something in this? And obviously we're just shooting from the hip here, so I don't run with the first idea we come up with, but I would go to them to say, is there something we can do here? Is there something, could we work a story out of this?
Yeah, we'll bring Lexi back in, but I don't want to forget Britt sitting here as well. So I want a bit of commentary from her as well. All right, sorry, Lexi, go on.
No, just building off Mark, and this may not ever be the idea we settle on, but you just keep rolling with it. I'm thinking that actually, I don't like to just give things to influencers. I like them to do something with it. I like it to have a purpose. And I quite like the idea of them, you send them the skipping rope, but they do some kind of design on it. And then these get sold as limited editions, right? And so then, and even collaborative influencer skipping ropes, where one person does one handle, one gets the next, right? So that then you can sell those products individually. And that becomes quite fun, because then you can do a solid interview with that one influencer about why they're skipping, what type of rope they like, why did they pick that color? So it becomes an excuse for a publication to do more of a profile on the influencer, but it's all centered around the product, but without it feeling, disengaged. So
another tie-in at the moment as well might be that, like, people can't go to the gyms and they don't like running. Skipping's actually a great option, and it's a way of, hey, like, just skip for 2 minutes a day or whatever. There might be some angles in there.
Yeah. Britt, do you want to step in? You've got some ideas that you can pitch in here?
So it made me think of actually this. Oh, my alarm is going off. It made me think of actually this content piece that I came across with Mark a few weeks back, and I'm blanking on the name. I think it's a UK company, and they sell fabrics, and I believe it was called Plums. I could be wrong. I think it's like a craft store, and they created it had a lot to do with the lockdowns. They created basically puzzles or brain teasers, and in those brain teasers, each depicted an element of our new lives, the new normal, I guess you could say, of what lockdown is like. One was basically a cartoon illustration. I'll share this with you afterwards in case people want to check it out. But it was a cartoon illustration of Chinese takeout delivery, and you had to like spot the chopsticks, I believe. And yeah, and it was a quick, simple thing. It was just a basic static graphic, and they provided a human element to it as well, because they went out and created a contest and had those people who were in graphic design school, I believe, submit their work, and then they chose the best illustration to then create all of the other lockdown brain teaser visualizations. And there was this beautiful story about this woman who just got into graphic design school and submitted her work, and obviously was very excited about this opportunity because she had just started her journey into graphic design too. And so she went to the local press to share her story. I believe she was featured on the university's blog that she attended. And that's just a really good example, I think, of tying in something that's timely in order to get that earned media coverage. I think that's key in this instance. Like Mark was saying, you have to make sure like it has a timely tie into what we're all experiencing right now, and the new year as well.
One thing I've heard that's been working quite well during lockdown, which has been a bit different, is actually just selling in, like as an expert, 7 tips on, the example I saw was like selling in 7 tips on how to get better sleep, because it's something that everyone is struggling, well, a lot of people are struggling with in lockdown. You could again do like 7 ways to do exercise whilst the gyms are closed and that don't involve running. You know what I mean? And the reason that tips wouldn't normally get picked up by journalists, because they can write them themselves in a flash. But the reason, we're presuming a little, but the reason that's working at the moment, unfortunately, is that a lot of journalists have been put on furlough. And so the pressure on publications and those that are still there to get out even more content, if you give the article fully formed, some of them are just cool. There's a post done.
So you just hit on an interesting point there. So what we're looking at is, at the moment, the market is quite desperate for content to be provided to these outlets. So you should be able to take advantage of this now, because people are working from home. Therefore, there's an opportunity to get out more content. And obviously they're trying to protect their jobs, right? Because with everyone being furloughed and everything else, they want to make sure that they're always performing all the time, because they might be up for the chop.
Yeah, I mean, Lexi, you know a lot about the demands that are on journalists and what they need to provide, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of journalists who are just super busy, and the part of their role that involved almost reviewing submitted content almost doesn't exist, because there is so much news within their particular sectors. And you know, trying to get certain stories seen as more important than what are the new COVID rules, it is hard. But there is always a great need for content, always. I'm a big believer that whether it's a lockdown and journalists are up against pressures or not, you should deliver things in a full format. So, you know, everything we send to a journalist, there'll be base copy that's well written. There will be facts and figures that are well referenced. There will be multiple images that can go with it, preferably video content. So if somebody wants to just quickly put a story together, they can. But in our pitch, there will also be several different sort of trends or concepts that they could build out in collaboration with other brands as well. So I think there is really a mixture. At the moment, I think yes, there are journalists who have lost their jobs. A lot of them.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who lost their jobs. My point being is I'd probably sounded a bit callous when I said up for the chop. What I meant is a prime time. They need content. Why not feed it to them? Hence, that means they're turning out a higher level of content, which means they're more likely to keep their jobs because of the steadier flow of content coming through, was really my point. But I probably used the wrong phrasing for it. Yeah.
I know, and I completely agree with you. It is a truth, but it is always a truth. Journalism has never, I mean, even like 3 years ago, we saw more journalist job losses than we had seen since the previous recession before. So that was before we had lockdown. But journalists can't take content from you if it's not well referenced.
Yeah.
You know, for example, American journalists, and this is true for a lot of British journalists, in their contracts, they are personally liable for the accuracy of a lot of the content they write. So although the publications have insurance, if you give someone a piece of inaccurate content and they ended up being sued, then how much time did you actually save them if they've now lost their house or their guitar or their car? And so there was a huge trust factor involved. And these clauses in their contracts are transferable. So if their publication gets bought, they can still be sued for a piece of content they wrote ages ago.
Blimey.
So you only save them time if you make it completely explicit how trustworthy the content is, because otherwise it is easier and safer for them to do the research themselves.
I mean, to me, that sounds terrible. They're literally being thrown under the bus. Journalists, as a rule, apart from the top 10%, barely earn money. They're not, it's almost seen like a music industry, journalism, the lower echelons of TV and film. You don't get paid very well. It goes to the cream at the top. So it's unfortunate that they're liable for everything. But if we get to a point where let's kind of cover off backward steps, going back to the beginning of the show, let's talk about finding ideas for a piece of content and then taking it to delivering it to the magazine or the outlet with the citation, etc., and the research behind it. Starting with yourself, Mark, let's walk through those steps. So you've got an Amazon brand, they want to research content. Walk me through a few of those steps and the idea of you kind of brainstorming to that point to getting the angles on that press in between the high velocity content.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of examples. So BuzzSumo is my favorite tool for this because that goes on and quickly shows me everything that's getting engaged with. Like from any site over the last year, how many social shares has it had? So actually, or another way to do it is go to a site that you'd want to be on, or at least is maybe a big one in your industry. And even if you didn't reach that, that's what people are into. So I looked at TechCrunch, where we wanted to come up with some stuff in the tech industry. And we noticed that I noticed that acquisitions, companies getting acquired by Google, Amazon, Facebook, etc., was always getting spoken about. So I was like, this gets a lot of attention. And I just wondered, right, has anyone ever shown all of the companies that Apple and Google and Facebook have acquired and for how much? And they hadn't. And I just wanted to see that. It was something that I wanted to know. So if you dig into it with curiosity and think, what else would I like to know here? Or what would I like to see? And so we gathered that information. I mean, it was available on Wikipedia. We actually launched, we got super lucky with this one. We launched it 3 days before Facebook acquired WhatsApp for 19 billion. So we quickly dropped that data point in, and this thing then exploded. It was on the front page of TechCrunch for 3 days. Or another example would be, I know somebody that was searching for, they saw this piece that did really well where people had analyzed movie scripts to see it showed the proportion of gender dialogue, males and females speaking in movies. And they just looked at that and thought, what else could we do with this? And they decided to figure out which movies had the most swearing. They just stuck with that. It's like, what else? What's the next thing you'd like to know? And then if you can get that information, and if no one else has done it and you can get it, then you could be on to something. That's how I think about it.
Cool. And over to you, Britt, please.
Sure. So, can you restate the question? I was still lost in what Mark was talking about.
Effectively what we want to do is go through these steps of galvanizing the ideas around developing this piece of earned media to the outlet, including the research behind it. So if we were to drum through those steps, so Mark's kicked in some ideas there. Mm-hmm. What would you do in terms of piecing this together and writing this content? How would you structure this? Sure.
So typically, I would suggest that you post this content on your blog. This is a bit different from what we were talking about previously, but say, for example, here's a good recent example. For one of my clients, they are actually a business that sells promotional marketing products. So any kind of business can come to them and get swag for whatever it is that they do, whether they're restaurants or a school, university, any business. And basically, we were curious to know who, here in the US, we're also on lockdown, and a lot of people haven't been back to the office in months. So we wanted to know who's excited to return and who's not, and how do they feel about returning to the workplace right now while we're still waiting on our vaccines and just the COVID-19 situation to be eradicated, basically. So we wanted to know what safety precautions would make them feel more comfortable. And we gathered all of this research on the topic, and we published it on their blog. We wrote up a beautiful summary of it, highlighting the key takeaways. And then I would then go to journalists and reporters and share the survey or the survey insights with them, and reference the blog post that we published, and then offer up as well, on top of that, any HR experts who can speak to the survey insights that we found. Because my clients aren't necessarily the experts on returning to the workplace, right? They're a company that creates items that businesses can purchase to help their employees return to the workplace safely, like those stickers that we all see now that tell us how far apart we can stay away. We have to, socially.
So this idea will kind of work for people that on Amazon that are in office supplies.
Exactly.
So there's some angles there that sell those kind of products. And let's be honest, most of them are not very sexy. They're not like shiny objects. So it's not, one of my questions going to be is, how do you take boring products and create earned media around it? But we'll get to that question in a moment. I'll let you finish your piece. Yeah.
This could be, like, we were definitely concerned, like, this might be a pretty boring piece, obviously people are excited to get back into the office, and there's a lot of boring precautions that go into that. But believe it or not, we did drum up some really awesome media coverage, particularly with local news stations, especially most recently after the holidays. All of the holiday excitement was over and done with, and people need new news stories that are still relevant to the time period that we're in and the issues people are facing. So that's one example, and I might have went off into a tangent there with that one, but hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no worries. We've got a question here from the comments, IB. What is the best channel to make contact with different journalists, or where should a press release be published to get more journo views? Over to you, Lexi.
So, it really depends. I know a lot of journalists that don't even look at their email anymore and get upset if you don't send something via Facebook. Whereas in the past, I feel like, no, Facebook, if I'm on Facebook, it's because we're friends. I wouldn't violate that boundary. It really depends on the journalist. But I think we always talk about what does the journalist want, but it's actually really important to talk about what's authentic to you. Yeah. If you're just really big into Twitter, then tweet people. That's what you do. Forcing, I know this from hiring teams. We've grown a lot over the last few years. And I'd have to really push people, try Twitter. You might love it. And they're like, but I don't tweet normally. I'm like, but you might. And you find out suddenly they're really good at it. Email is fine, but bear in mind they're getting loads. If you're doing a local news story and you don't have the metro district in the title, you're almost certainly getting completely filtered out. So there are some tactics. Getting a press release viewed isn't really super important. It doesn't. We can cover the press release thing when we do backlinks and stuff. We can talk press releases and the effects or non-effects there on the next episode, if that's right. But yeah, sorry. That's fine. But the databases are really useful. The most accurate media database I know of is Gorkana. We split test 3-4 databases every year. And last year, Gorkana came out top. Brox Hill was second for the most accurate data and the volume of it, but journalists move a lot. But getting in touch with a journalist is really about understanding that journalist, or go straight to the newsroom. If you're lucky enough to be able to call a newsroom and you get through to the newsroom, you say, I have a story about this. I think it would be perfect for this desk. And they'll say, actually, I think it'll fit better on this one. And they put you through. That's fine. You don't need to know the exact journalist, especially if it's a story you're disseminating quickly, because we go through a similar process to Britt, when we'll create a press story, we'll pre-brief a bunch of journalists. We know those articles are going out. We've given them all the details. The moment the first article goes live, our blog post about it goes up, the press release on our website goes up, maybe a series of interviews with our specialists will go up, and a couple of videos. So journalists have multiple places to link to. But once you've got your first series of pre-sale interviews and press live, that's when you're just selling it in fast before the story gets old, or before you get to the next round of the story, because I like to plan several peaks to a story.
Yeah.
But how you reach someone, it's as much as where that journalist hangs out and what they're going to like, because they'll all tell you they hate the phone, all of them.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, when you suggest phone in the newsroom, that's proper old school. That's like telesales. A lot of people won't do that. But I suppose if you identify who the journalist is, and then you do a research in terms of where they hang out on social media, and it might be, DMing them on Instagram, or I'm not saying TikTok, but Facebook, like you said. But you said also is that there's boundaries, right? Because you think, well, hold on, this is at the professional environment. But if they literally live on Facebook, that's the place you would target to send in your content. How would you approach that cold, though?
I mean, a lot of what we do is cold, because journalists are moving around a lot.
Yeah.
The phone. I mean, I'm a big believer, if you want to hire great PRs, hire ex-telesales people.
Right.
You've got to be brave. But this comes back to the very beginning part of how you create content. You have to become an annoying 3-year-old, and you have to be very connected with that irritating 3-year-old that goes, why? Why do you make the hats there?
Yeah.
And why do you make them like that? And why that color? And why do you deliver them like that? So that you have to be interested. I would never put anyone selling in a story that didn't actually care, wasn't interested. And I wouldn't have anyone building it out. So when you call a journalist, you're calling with, hey, I've got something of interest. And then, I think phone is great. Email is still a massive port of communication. I am a little old school, and I can't get out of it. I'm not going to be tweeting journalists. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But everyone has their ways and their means. And being straight up, the key thing is when you're navigating these boundaries of what is socially correct, just say from the beginning, not, hey, how are you? What have you been up to? How's lockdown going? Hi, how are you? I had a story that I thought would be a good fit for you. Is it okay for me to contact you here?
Yeah. So you're literally coming straight out with it. No tic-tac-toe. You're not going back and forth. Hey. You get straight to the point. They're a journalist. You want to obviously cover the media. Just going like that. Don't have to play, a game of building up a relationship, with small talk.
Well, you can afterwards, but there's nothing worse than the journalist might be chatting to you because they put out feelers for a new job, and they might think you're getting in touch about that. And that's a really bad sell when they think they might be getting a job interview and now you're selling them a story. That feels like dishonesty. So it's a bad foot. But it really is, we split our teams up according to their contacts as well. Right. So we
very
will
much
look
like
at
like a PR company. That's what they do, is they'll go with their strongest contacts first, don't they? And then had them broken into groups.
Well, we'll go with we look at who we need for which contacts. So we have our core team, and then we have a big set of freelancers, and we'll be like, we have to launch this story on the UK side before the US, because typically American press will follow British press, but British press will not follow American press. So we'll be like, okay, we need this journalist on this publication in Britain, but then we need their counterpart on the US side. Who do we know that knows them best? Yeah. And then divide and conquer. And then preferably, if you're getting really detailed, and I'm bad, I don't do this all the time, make sure that whoever sold it in does an introduction to someone else on the team. So you're widening everyone's contact base. But it's easy to drop the ball on that when you're running around like crazy selling in a bunch of stories. So I'd like to pretend we did it perfectly, but that part maybe not so much.
Cool. Is there anyone want to add anything before we go? As I said, like this show is about earned media, just setting the tone for stuff. It's been very high level. We'll talk about link building in the next episode, but I think it's important that we had the context of building out the right editorial first, know the niche down of your market, where you want to place it, and then we can talk about the attributes of link building in the next episode. So before we go, Mark, any final words from you?
Yeah, there was one bit of context I think was important to add that I didn't give. We just plucked a few ideas from obscurity here whilst we're chatting just for fun. But I don't pick the first idea and run with it. I don't move as a rule. I don't even start moving on it until I have 60 to 80 ideas in front of me, and then I filter it down to make sure we've got a good one. I have the longest I got to, I had 49 pages of ideas before I started filtering. That was a bit of a long session, but it's just by going for quantity first, you make sure that you filter it down for quality. And you filter by, can we get the data? Is this something people are interested in? Has it been done before? And I'm looking for no there. Is it something we could sell into press? Have they covered this before? And I would chat to whoever's going to be promoting it, Lexi, Britt, for example, and see that they're comfortable. They think this is something they can pitch. But yeah, I go for a lot of ideas. I don't just pluck one and run with it. I didn't want to give that impression.
No, that's fine. Britt?
No, I think we've covered almost everything that I would suggest in this instance. Another tool perhaps that would be useful is I love Mixmax, and I talk about it all the time right now. And it's not necessarily one that comes up to help you come up with content ideas. It's actually an email, CRM tool, I guess you could say. And that way you can see if journalists are opening your email, if they're clicking on different things. And
what's the name of that software again? Because your voice broke out there.
Oh, Mixmax. It's
Mixmax.
A bit of a tongue twister. Yeah, mixmax.com.
Yep,
yeah,
sounds good.
One other tool for email outreach.
Lexi?
No, the only thing I'd second Brett on, any kind of tool that gives you that feedback. I don't find it typically changes my strategy, but it massively impacts how the team selling in a story feels. Because everyone gets all excited, they've worked on something for ages and they run around selling it in, and then there's just crickets. But you've got to keep selling it in. And so I think there's a lot of psychology in keeping your outreach and promotional team excited in the same way there is to keeping a client calm during a launch. Yeah. And those skills can often be forgotten, but if you can keep people excited, sometimes it just takes a hot minute for people to get around to your email. If it's not critical to news going on in an hour, then it'll take a little while. And I love it when you can see people opening. You're like, what is it that they're thinking? And it's exciting.
Cool. Just going to go to the comments. Elchin says, hi all, thanks for a great session. Tiff's back. Good morning to everyone. Wellington's here. Good morning, guys. Thank you for the show. Side B says, Happy New Year. We've covered this question earlier, but he does have another one. Oh yeah, I used to send my gifts, my gift wrapped products to journalists. That is old school. Does it still work?
So I got a rocking piece of coverage last year. I sent the best biscuit tin you've ever seen in the whole world. I love it. It looks like a carousel and you wind it up and then it plays a tune. And I sent it to a journalist, but I didn't want it to be a bribe, but I couldn't get hold of them. And I tried every means possible. And I just said, will you have a cup of tea and a biscuit with me? I'm not going to ask you to publish anything. I just want to understand what it is you need. And because I'm always cautious of not looking like we're bribing. Yeah. But this was an American journalist, and I knew that these biscuits are hard to get in the States. And I sent him my favorite tea, English tea, all the ornate stuff. And actually, I didn't even get a response. They just published the last story I'd sent them and that they hadn't published before. And I was like, so it does work, but it can't look like a bribe.
Gotcha.
I think that's really important.
So
but if you want to make
no envelopes of cash going up to their building and slipping it in their back pocket. Yeah.
Unless you are promoting a security brand, and then, like, let's say you've got a really good padlock, and then you go and drop them off a box with £1,000 in it, a lockpicking kit, and send them around a lockpicking instructor, and say this box is so secure that this like expert criminal can't open it, but we'll leave it with you and him in a private tutoring for a week, and if you can open it, it's yours. That makes a great story. That turns the whole theatre into the sell-in.
So, so you got theatre, you got a story, and you got bribery, and you got away with it.
I grew up in South Africa. What can I say?
Yes, excellent. All right, we're going to sign off now. Lexi, how can people reach you?
At Lexi Mills on Twitter. I'm pretty responsive there. LinkedIn, you can message me as well, or email. But yeah, even I'm not a huge fan of email. It's much nicer to start a conversation and just get on a call and have a real chat. So happy to speak to anyone if they've got questions.
Cool. And Britt?
Yeah, LinkedIn is also a great place to reach me. I'm on Twitter at Brit_Clons. And those are probably the best two places.
Excellent. And Mark, for you?
Yeah, for me, contenthubble.com. It's just a one-page landing site at the moment, but actually, if you want to go there, I've got interviews about 31 content campaigns that people came up with that were very successful, and you can hear how they did it. And then the new site will be getting launched there this month. Definitely it's long overdue. Definitely this month. Or you can also catch me on Twitter at Epic Graphic.
Excellent. Cool. So we'll be next with you next week. Again, Tuesday with you guys. We're going to talk about link building then. I'll be back here 4 p.m. tomorrow. Don't forget, Sharon Evan is joining the Seller Sessions team alongside me and Bella. She'll be here on a Thursday. So no format is Isabella on a Monday, me on the Tuesday and Wednesday, and then you're going to have Sharon Evan on a Thursday. So I'll be back here 4 p.m. BST tomorrow. Take care of yourself and your family. Much love. I'll see you then.